friend, and I rarely see Dan. We don't have constant conversation back and forth, but when we do, it's almost like you're settling in with a really old friend, someone that you've had long, deep, connecting conversations with, and it becomes this very like fluid thing, like where
Right.
it's this is
Probably,
true.
I'll probably shout out Adam for that, Adam K for our friendship, definitely.
I was trying to connect where it was before, and Kat asked earlier tonight, like, what was the connection? And then sometimes there is none. I've had guests on Utility Room that I've had zero connection with,
Right.
but we get into it.
First time conversations with the people though, like that awkward first conversation during the live stream.
Yes, but not awkward. I mean, this
Right,
is this
right.
is the beauty of it. I mean, we're together. We're together not just because of our awesome conversation, but also because of who Daniel Dubb is. Um, Deep house, tech house, techno producer DJ, emanating from Toronto, also operating a record label, DV8 Recordings, or is it DV8 Records?
Records,
Okay.
records.
Are you passionate to the name? If I say
To the
recordings, all of a sudden is it like
Oh, I don't. No, not at all, man. Not at all. It's like labels don't even really in this day. It's like records is just like a formality at the end of a label title, right? It's like
right?
so many labels. You don't say, "Oh, I signed a record to Hawk Creations Records." You know, it's just a brand name at this point, right?
Was there what you said? Hawk Creations, was this a label that for you was a benchmark that you wanted to hit?
Not overly personally for me, but a lot of people within my circle definitely were striving for that Hawk Creations placement. But yeah, it just never stylistically fit with the music I was really making unless it would be definitely something outside of my typical realm, I think, if I was to sign something to Hawk Creations.
What would you say? Did you have it? Did you have a moment where you released music on a label that was a benchmark for you to hit?
I mean, pretty much in my start of my career, every label that I released on were all benchmarks that I strive to hit. And then I was so tunnel visioned on that I almost like refused to release anywhere else, which, gets perceived, by certain people certain ways. But, you know,
What's that like? So it's almost like you're getting exactly what it is that you wanted, coming out of it, and that
right?
happens right away. What do you do? Did you have a plan? Like, where do I go from here?
I mean, in the start of my career, the business side was not on my mind at the time. It was more about the music side and, my connection to it, what I wanted from it, what I strived for. It was never like a financial gain more so than like, oh, I'd like to get on this guy's label because I respect this guy's music a ton and his influence over me and getting into this music and whatnot. So it's like those were my sort of tunnel vision at the time was literally just trying to go after these labels and people that I admired. And I didn't really leave much room for anything outside of that at the time, which, you know, can be perceived as a good thing or a bad thing depending on who it is. I'm sure I rubbed a couple people the wrong way that asked for music for their labels at the time that maybe I wasn't interested in, not because I didn't like them or anything, but it just didn't fit what my image of what I was going for at the time. You know what I mean?
Can you take us back, Dan? Can you take us back, like
Take us
way
back.
back? Yeah, way back at the time.
Okay, like prior to like making music time or
I mean, there was a moment that happened for you. It was in a car, maybe it was at home. It could have been at school. I'm not sure where it was, but something happened where all of a sudden it was, in comes the electronic dart, the
so
music
like one
dart,
of my
and you get tagged with it.
yeah, so it's like one of my high school friends who was one of my close friends at the time, he already had the bug. And at the time, I was more into like hip hop and stuff like that because that's kind of mainly where like when I started initially making music, it was making like hip hop type stuff. Just because my passion and influences growing up when I was a teen was, those Biggie, Tupac, Mobb Deep, and Nas, all these people. So that's kind of where I started when I started making music. And he was more in the DJing side at the time, and he was, DJing kind of more like tribal progressive house, I would say. And so whenever we were hanging out, he was always playing this music, right? And it took a while at first for me to like catch that bug, so to speak. I think with a lot of people it's like that, where when you first kind of hear this music, you kind of got to wrap your head around like, wow, I'm listening to like a kick and a hi-hat and a clap for 7 minutes, and a minute and a half of that is an intro of just drums. And like it's a hard thing to like wrap your head around when growing up, you've been listening to music that's typically like 3 minutes long. So he was constantly playing music, and he started playing this one set, which was actually right before you started the live cast. I was mentioning Hernan Catania. It was a set of his that was from Moon Park in 2003. You can look it up on YouTube, that Hernan Catania, Moon Park 2003. And it was honestly just so good to me. Everything about it was just so good that's where I got my bug. So I asked him that night. I was like, "Hey, like, can I have this CD? Can I like take it home and listen to it and whatnot?" And I think he gave it to me. And I listened to that a bunch, and then after listening to that a bunch, I kind of wanted to hear more. And you hear a little more and a little more, and his musical taste was and always has been fantastic. So like everything he was playing me at the time was, some of the biggest DJs at that current time, which we're talking, 2003 era, 2005 progressive, just before electro, and sort of just before like CDJs took over and all that stuff. And yeah, I just caught that bug through my friend, and then my interest in it kept him showing me more and more, which led to like him showing me DJing and all this other stuff, which kind of led to where I am today.
I feel like we're missing a big step.
Which step would that be?
Did you go out?
Oh, I mean, of course. So my first party that I experienced was in Montreal. Did you ever go to a club called Aria?
I did not.
So
I did not.
it was New Year. It was New Year's Eve. I don't know what year this was. Maybe like 2005, 2004, maybe somewhere around there. And Deep Dish was playing a New Year's Eve party. And at the time, like that where we live, you can't go to a club until you're 19 years old. But in Montreal, there's a loophole where you have to be 18 years old. So
It's not really.
18-year-old me,
It's not a loophole.
not a loophole, not a loophole, but
it's just that's the law.
a gift, a gift. So
if
a
you're
bunch
18,
of us got
you
in the
mean,
car.
right? If you're 18,
So
it's the gift.
yes,
Right.
of course. So we all got in the car and went for New Year's, booked our hotels, got these tickets, and we went to this party. And yeah, it was Sharam only. It wasn't both of Deep Dish, and don't know why, but anyways. And yeah, it was just like, I mean, what your first rave is like. It
No,
was
I
just
don't. I don't. My experience from whatever your experience was probably very different. That's why I'm curious.
I mean, my experience was it's like I don't even know how to put it into words. It was just magic, You get there, the music, the lights, the club. I never experienced dance music at a decibel rate like that. You're listening in basements with friends and in cars and whatnot. I never heard it on like a massive sound system that's like, just everything you'd ever need. So the music aspect alone was incredible, but then mix that in with New Year's and the hype of New Year's, and everybody's partying, and everybody's a little tipsy, and
Were you on the dance floor? Were you next to the wall? Were you
so
fascinated?
so I mean, for me it always started kind of on the walls on the side, and then as the night progresses you get a little more in and a little more in, and then like my buddy was always the type that would just be like, all right, let's go, like front middle right now, right? So like eventually we'd all go there and then end up staying there. But it's kind of weird because like at the time, maybe you're like you need a break, so you're going to the back to like have a smoke or whatever and this and that, but then like you're gone for like 20 minutes, which at the time feels like forever when you run into your friends like you left, and then you come back and you see them on the floor and everybody's just, you know, it's magical. I don't want to get too.
It sounds like you had a good time.
I did. I most certainly did.
At that point, because this was like your first time, you hadn't seen people really reacting to this music. You really only had your
Right.
reactions to go off on how this was all supposed to work out there, rather than what was
Totally.
happening inside your head and your imagination. When you were watching people go off to this, did the dancing, did it look foreign to you? Was it familiar? Were you like, oh yeah, this is how it was supposed to be, or were you
It,
looking at it like, what's happening?
I mean, the dancing doesn't look foreign. I think it's more like I wasn't, it took me a while to warm up to the point where I could be like shimmying on a dance floor. I was always the type, I really love the music, but I like, I was shy, so to speak, when it came to like going into the dance floor, just dancing like nobody's looking. Like that was never really my thing for a long time until I finally just got like comfortable within my own skin, in those circumstances.
So that's
But
that's it's that no, I'm so that's just it. See, I mean, maybe foreign was the wrong word for me to use. I probably should have used the word alternative. I'm saying that, for example, because I don't think that you'd be able to go to a top 40 club and see, a bunch of people shuffling. That's not what's going on. So, when I think about, and I'm using shuffling just as one example, and there's probably a dozen
right.
different, rave type dances that we could name. Um, but
Do
but
you
I
do you know the name of your dance move?
of mine itself.
Like, do you have like one that fits into a genre? Like I have like what's called
Absolutely.
that.
I'm the
I
Carl. I do the Carlton from Fresh Prince.
Okay,
It's
I
yep.
kind of just have the. It's nothing special. I just have the everyman dance.
Okay.
If you know what
The
that is, it's
everyman
just kind
dance.
of not really doing too much going on, but like you don't look like you're standing still.
Right. But then we're talking about also what you said, that you eventually felt comfortable, and it was welcoming. And I think to myself also, comparatively, how if I was to go to a more popular music nightclub, or open format, that this type of acceptance really doesn't it I'm not quite sure if it doesn't happen. It's just that I don't find that it's equal.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you on that.
Okay.
But I feel like there's so many people in the club, whether it's a top 40 club or like a hip hop club or a techno club. It's like there's so many people who genuinely dance like they don't give a fuck what you think. And you see those people at all of those venues. They might do a different dance move, but there's that you always can spot like there's some of those people there that just dance like nobody's watching.
I think we need more of that.
It's yeah. I mean, yeah. If everybody could just dance like nobody's watching, right? That's why, honestly, when I used to play all the time, I would tell the lighting guy, turn the lights down low, keep it to like red and dark blue, and like leave it at that. Because the more light you give them, like the less they'll dance like nobody's watching. I swear it was a thing that I did all the time, and it always seemed to work for me. But I found that that was always a thing.
Winning formula for you.
Just yeah, just the darkness. Everybody likes a little darkness from time to time.
So you had this incredible New Year's Eve experience in Montreal at Aria.
Hmm. What happens next? I mean, that sort of that whole thing now started happening like frequently, not necessarily driving to Montreal all the time, but
Right.
um, going out and partying was like, whenever good DJs were coming to either Toronto or Montreal or whatever, it was just like, yeah, we got to go. And that just happened for like, I don't know how many years.
So the DJing for sure. This came first for you.
I
Before.
DJ'd I DJ'd before I started producing house music or dance music.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And
then
it was strictly on like a passion base. I was just playing with my buddy in his basement or my basement or other friends' places. And yeah, like that was happening for a while before I ever tried to produce a dance track.
when did that happen? When was it for you where you wanted to take it seriously, I guess? I'm saying that because I'm familiar with where you're at now. Obviously, with some of the results. Do you mean in 2011 you had the most downloaded track on Beatport? Is it? Am I saying this wrong? Or maybe
Something like that, yeah.
but
Number
which one?
one selling.
No, but then say it right. I've got the
I
fact.
believe, I mean, I
What
don't
track was this
quote me on
for?
it, but this was for the Sinnerman
The
remix.
Cinnamon remix.
Yeah, it was like the number one downloaded track of the year on Beatport and the longest running number one or something like that.
I mean, that's crazy. And
I'd
that
like to take credit for it, but honestly, man, when you're using a Nina Simone sample like that, it's
that's
kind
not
of
a
just
guarantee. I have 100 guys right now. So this interview that would immediately rip that sample and try and do something with it, and that's not a guarantee.
right time, right place as well. I think we had I didn't make that record alone. I made it with Sean Miller, and we had a lot of people within our circle that were playing it and supporting it, and some bigger DJs as well that really gave that the traction because that track was made in like the end of 2009, but it didn't come out until 2011. So there was like a year in between where it was just being played by like, Mark Knight, Steve Lawler, Nick Fanciulli, and a bunch of other people at the time that were, super credible in the scene. So everybody's hearing this record and like nobody knows where it is. Nobody can get their hands on it. And then finally it comes out and like, came out on Tool Room nonetheless, which I mean, we all know how successful that label is. So
What was it about having these VIP, what are called VIPs or IDs now? I mean, I want to say, I think back in 2010 or 2011, were these still white labels if you had an unreleased track? I mean, at this point, everything was already digital.
yeah, it was all digital. We didn't, yeah, there was no vinyl copies of that song.
What is it about having an advance that is held back for that long to create that type of hype that once it was unleashed, that people can get their hands on it? What is it about this energy? Is this is this is this
I
exclusive to dance music, to raving? I can't think to myself that there's an instance of like a popular music song that is being handled by a variety of different DJs or radio personalities. Can you imagine that you can add it to your playlist
I
for a year,
bet
but you're
I bet you'd be surprised by the amount of, songs that were made versus when they were released. And, it could be, I mean, for example, like Drake's been working on an album for how long now? Like a year. So he's got records he made a year ago that might make the cut on this album that come out in another 6 months from now or 5 months from now. So then that record's a year and a half old almost to him, right? But it's new to all of us. And I think that's, you know, um, I don't really know how that pertains to what we were necessarily saying, but
no. Well, some stuff is going to be timeless.
right.
So it doesn't matter. I mean, there's music that we're listening to now that was released 30, 40 years ago.
And
Some of which is dance music.
there's no, you know what though, there's no formula. So to say that like, holding that particular record back, and it wasn't out of like, a conscious thing of trying to hold this record to build hype. It was more about finding the right home where we could do it legitimately, where it wouldn't be, something that would get taken down because of sample clearance or anything like that. It just took time for the right situation to line up. So, you know, it, a bunch of things went into the favor of that, like a lot of people, a lot of big guys were supporting it, this and that, but there could be another record where you try to do the exact same formula and it just doesn't work. So I could never say what it was about that record at the time that did so well. Again, it was just like the right time for that song to reemerge, because even like a decade before that, Felix the House Cat did a version of that, which was a massive record at that time as well. So
What did you do with the success of the record when you were trying to do the follow up? I guess for the, I guess I'm trying to say the follow up to the hit of it. I mean, you
right.
can't really follow up a remix. You weren't going to do another remix, right? I mean, you chased it with an original track, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I put a couple releases out, shortly after that, that were on Rejected, and another one that at the time was on Area Remote. But I my next big selling record came maybe 5 releases later, which was, surprise enough, another like remix, which it was the remix of the Loonies' I Got Five, right?
And this
So
sampled, I got five on it.
that's right.
This was a massive track again.
It did all right. Yeah, it was on my own label for the first time. It was the fifth release on my own label. So I had, 5, 6, maybe 6, 7 releases between Sinnerman and I Got Five.
What started happening with Daniel Dubb once this music really started getting into all of the different DJs' hands, not just the big guys, but you could really start. You're starting to feel the heat from this. You're starting to
Yeah,
tour,
I mean, I did. I landed on Bullet Agency,
and
uh,
then
which I was with them for a while. We did a bunch of touring all through North America and did a little bit of South America, which I was with them for, I don't know, a couple of years, and then I went over to Liaison, um, which I was there for another couple of years, and yeah, I did you know solid 3 years of touring off of the combination of those records and the timing, um, which was great. I got to visit a ton of places. I went as far as Egypt. Um, got to meet a bunch of cool people who I'm still friends with today through the scene. You absolutely know how that is. You
yeah,
know,
for sure. I mean, there's a lot of glory stuff, um, life glory stuff, personal life glory stuff that can happen from touring, and a lot of what you're saying is true. I've talked about this before. For me, a lot of it also was food. I started thinking of destinations with food stuff. Like
it's dude, that's so funny because I had a thing, man. Wherever I went, I was always like, okay, take me to your best burger joint in the city. And
okay,
I was just going around like that's what was my go-to thing. Like, take me to the fucking best burger joint in town. Which one was my favorite? I don't remember.
oh, that's not good.
Yeah, they all bleed in, and then there's, you try the generics of the cities, right? Oh, you're in Chicago, well, I'll try deep dish pizza or whatever, right? Or Philly steak.
I didn't do it. I
No.
went to I went yeah no I went to Philly, and I didn't get the cheesesteak, and that's a mega fail.
Yeah.
Can't do it
Did you
all.
visit the Rocky statue?
I did not. No. Wait, that's real?
Dude, it's real. Across the street from the steps. It's in like a park there. Yeah, the statue that like they used in one of the movies, they moved it to that across the street of that hall.
We had a little bit of a. I didn't know this. I didn't know about this. I genuinely thought it was a movie prop. I didn't know that it was a real
Well, I
thing.
think it did start as a movie prop, but then the city was like, "Yeah, we'll rep this, right?" And he was like, "Okay."
Get out of town. So it's like one of those situations of where life imitates art, or is art imitating life, and then it gets actualized. The city's like
Pretty
so
much,
many
yeah.
movies be wow,
Yeah,
crazy.
tons of people show like you see it all the time on Instagram and stuff. Whenever people visit there, it's like the Rocky statue.
What was your big thing that happened with you touring besides the meeting of the people, the awesome food? I'm talking about big thing musically. Was there a certain show that you did that, I mean, 3 years of touring, this is a lot of touring.
It was a fair amount.
What was the fuel for it?
What do you mean by what was the fuel?
Did you have were you excited for the magic? Were you experiencing a magical moment when you were performing in front of people?
Oh, it was great. I
What
loved it all. Like the feeling. So, the same friend of mine who got me into the music also really gave me strong fundamentals for DJing. Certain things that, I'd go as far as saying I don't see a lot of modern DJing sort of doing that, which is the long sort of storytelling type DJing, as opposed to just, play this record. Oh, there's 1 minute left. I cue this record. It was like, you start somewhere and you end somewhere, and there's like a journey in between that. So it was great because, every weekend I was getting that opportunity to like go to a different place and like take them on a journey that for me, it was all music that really like resonated with me. A lot of it was my own unreleased music too that I was playing. So it was super exciting to be going to all these places and playing this music, a lot of it being my own, and seeing these great reactions and feedback and return gigs and all that stuff. It's addictive in a way. It's like addictive to like playing for a crowd and having that energy is like addictive, I find.
was it because you're able to get the immediate feedback from what it was that you were doing and
I I think it's more of like a culmination of like all your hard work in the studio, and now you're getting to just showcase all of that stuff. It's like all this hard work that you're doing at home that nobody sees, that slaving, that like constant self-doubt of like, is this track strong enough? Is this right? Is my fucking clap good enough? All those little things, they all just melt away to nothing when you're like in that moment, when you have a crowd there, they're loving it, you're loving it, and it's just like you realize that like 2 hours went by and you're like, but I just started.
awesome.
So that's kind of, yeah, so like addictive in the sense that like, it's all that work, it's all that effort paying off in like the most rewarding way of seeing like, the gratification of like all your hard work coming together and like rewarding you in this way of seeing these people screaming, shouting, clapping, whistling for like this music that they've never even heard before. Like they don't know this song. It's not like they're going crazy because, oh, I love this song. It's like they've never heard it before. So, it's
Take
easy to impress a club with a bunch of music that everybody knows, right? Play a bunch of classic records and all this and that. It's easy to impress people, but like to impress people and maybe only play 2 or 3 songs the whole night that they knew, like another like addictive thing for me.
take me into the process with the doubt. What was it that you did to get yourself out of it? When you get to the place of where you get stuck on a snare, or if you got stuck on a hi hat, what was it that
That's
you did to move out of it? Because if you had the self doubt, obviously you could defeat yourself and then close the laptop, walk away.
so, I mean, my methods over the years changed, whereas in the early years, it was way, way more of a thing for me when I couldn't get one little sound right. It was always, there was always that like, fuck, this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough. Sometimes if I thought the overall song was strong enough where one little element was maybe bothering me but it's not going to bother the average listener, then I'd let it go. If I couldn't let it go, then nobody ever heard that song, right? And over the years, later in my producing years, I would stop being so concerned about like, oh, this snare's not right. It's never going to work. I'll try a couple different versions. Maybe I'll hybrid it with another two and layer it and get it right and move on. I stopped dwelling over little things that I knew are only my issue and it's not going to be a make or break for everybody else. Because when you're making music, it's like you're seeing it in this tunnel vision of like exactly what it is, how you want it. Whereas when someone else is listening, it's just their interpretation of it. And it's like rare that I mean, I'm sure you can speak like this. Like, how often when you're looking for DJ music, do you like come across a song and you're like, oh, this is great for my style, but that clap is whack. Like, I'm not going to play this track. Like, how many times did that happen for you? Just out of curiosity.
I mean, vinyl or once I went into live and started performing in live, everything's an edit. It doesn't matter
Right.
if
No,
I'm
but I'm
playing.
just saying, no, but I'm
So
just
I'm just
saying, like,
saying.
how
Well, I'm
many
saying
times
that
on
because
court
if there's an element in something that I hate, but I love the rest of it, I'll change it
I
so that
edit 60, at least 60% of the music I download for DJing. At least 60%.
yeah, no, I mean for me it's not that I have to, it's that I want to.
So yeah, you're doing it in Ableton on the fly. I actually download music, bring it into the DAW, edit it how I think it should be, and then export it and put that into my DJ collection.
I'm both. I'm both. I
Right.
mean a
But
lot of the
but
fly
you
stuff.
still didn't answer the question, which was
Okay,
like, how
sorry,
many times
apologies.
have you heard a song and you're so into the song, but like the clap, you don't like the clap, so you're not going to play the song, or that you don't like the hi hat. Like how often? Maybe once in your life did that happen?
Right.
Right? So it's like a lot of those issues that all of us as artists struggle with, with getting everything sounding right and this and that. It's like your own interpretation of it is holding you back more so than like what other people are going to think about it. Like nobody cares about what snare you use unless it sounds like absolute trash in your mix. And it's like, poorly put together, then maybe that's on you. But if you just don't like the sound or whatever, chances are that you might not like it, but I don't think it's going to deter other people from, moving forward with that song.
Well, isn't it that one man's trashy snare is another man's golden snare? I mean, isn't
I
that
mean,
a
for sure, definitely. But in the moment, you have a hard time getting past those fixations. And I just use the snare clap as an example, right? Like, could be anything. But we all have our little like hangups in the studio, and the trick is to learn how to just either accept them, delete them, or just move forward. And it's a hard thing for some people to grasp.
I think one of the greater details for you, my opinion, for production, well, was the details. When it comes down to sound design, you're rather specific. What were you doing to tune your
Driving
hearing? Your
myself mad.
do you
Tuning. So it started. It started with like the influences. What are your influences? What are the characteristics of those influences? And how can you start crafting your own tracks while taking the best of those influences, but still kind of making something a little unique, right?
I'm listening to you. Yeah, no.
So like
Were you waiting for my?
I can go on. I was just trying to not
I'm a
sit here and
captured audience for you right now, Mr. Dubb.
um, one thing that was always kind of a focus for me was like drums. Maybe that's also because prior to becoming a producer, growing up through middle school, high school, and all that, I played percussion. So maybe that's why. I don't know. But so, I was looking at a lot of tracks which influenced me at the time, which maybe are like Peace Division. Peace Division, you must, right? So like,
Clive Henry, and
yeah,
there was two people.
yes, Clive Henry and Justin Drake, I want to say. I might be wrong about his first name. Anyways, let's not get sidetracked on names.
Yeah, no, for a second, you got me.
um,
Can't remember.
so like they always had this specific style with their drums that was like just fuck yeah to me. Like it was just like stomping beats, as my buddy would call them. And it's like, so I really was influenced by that. And then like a lot of my drum patterns and stuff, mind you, I didn't go quite as tribal as Peace Division because it was just a different time period. But like all my drums contain this like dusty old school element that was like heavily influenced by, growing up listening to 90s hip hop, and then, you know, the producers within dance music, which I like, kind of had a little bit of that, like that dustiness, that grit, that like it's not quite perfect, but it just works so well, you know. And when I say perfect, I'm referring maybe like the mix, you know, maybe the this or that, but just when it all comes together, it just forms this really like strong, cohesive piece of music. And like that was one thing that, you know, I always try to do is get like this sort of dusty, old school style drums, but they still had to, you know, they still had to hit like modern day drums, but not necessarily that really like tight kick and snare or clap that like started coming around the time, which was, you know, the like dead mouse type of like kick and snare hi-hat combo, which were really tight and short. You know, obviously what I'm talking about.
What about H Foundation? Were you following along with what Halo and Hippie were doing?
They were never like I knew of them, but they weren't in my this like direct radar at the time when I was listening to music. A lot of what I was listening to at the time was more like it was like John Digweed, Sasha, Hernan Catano, Danny Howells, Lee Burridge, Steve Lawler, Nick Fanciulli, like a bunch of people at the time that were kind of moving in a slightly tech house, but still like funky house. Or, you know, there was Digweed and Sasha and Hernan, which were more melodic, but neither here nor there. The ones that I was trying to sort of go after and the sounds I was replicating were more the sort of tech house ones than the progressive side.
What was it that made you want to get your own record label going? You
I
were
just
already
want
because you were already releasing on labels that you were very excited about, and you
yeah.
also had a process when you were writing where it was either strong or away it goes and out of sight out of mind. So
Yeah.
did you start writing for yourself for your own label? Was this?
So at one point, when I was doing a lot of the touring and stuff, I was always just really inspired. You know what it's like when you're on the road, you're playing shows. It's just like you come back, you have 5 days to kill, and like you start making music. And it's almost easier to make music when you're touring because you're so in touch with like, you know, what's going on. So I was coming home and just making a ton of records. And then I got to the point where they started to not necessarily sound like the labels that I was releasing with, you know, prior to and even some around that time period where it's like, well, I have these records. I don't know who to send them to. Um, you know, I just had this, I was building the momentum with the Sinnerman release, and it just made sense to try to sort of put some music out there. Like my name was at a point where it garnished a little bit of attention. So people were, you know, I was getting some love with like Beatport and other things like that. So it seemed like the right time. You look like you want to ask me a question.
No, because you said garnish, so I was like, you mean gathered? You like your name was getting attention, not.
Did I say garnish?
Yeah.
Weird. Okay. Anyways,
That's why I was like, wait.
did this idiot
No,
just
no,
say
no, no, no.
garnish? But okay, so I was getting.
Wait a second. Did I
We're gonna
just
have
turn?
to look back at the stream
I
and
feel
see
like
if I said
you should.
garnish.
Well, the archive is the archive. I was just trying to tell you before. The archive is magic, and I feel like I just became like a live action comment thread police person. Like where someone's like, you didn't spell
Right,
that the way that
right.
was supposed to be spelled. You're
That's
like, I
not
was just
right.
typing quickly. It's a comment thread. I'm not trying to write my thesis. Take it easy. And some people get very
So,
excited, but I
so
genuinely didn't know because you said the word, and I was like,
yeah, weird. I don't
yeah,
know why I
yeah.
said
Well,
that.
because it just stopped me for a second. I was like, wait, what is he? And then it took me out. But I'm back. I'm back.
Maybe I need to smoke more weed.
No,
Just talk better.
if this was typed out and it was a typo, I would have told you that I was fluent in autocorrect, and then everything's okay.
Okay, let's go back.
Okay.
So at this point, you know, my name was getting attention. Beatport was, you know, putting me in features and nice spots because hey, this guy just got us a great record of the year, brought us a ton of money. So it was just time. it was time. I had all this momentum going. I had all this music where I was unsure which of the platforms I was releasing with it would go well. And I just wanted to start putting content out and even having a little more control over it, because you know what it's like when you're releasing music, you're with labels, you're a slave to their schedule. So like you could have a 5 month gap where you don't have releases because, oh, we're holding off on this one because we have four in front of it or whatever it is. So it was a way for me to just, put my music out there at my own sort of pace. And it just worked really well. For the first record, I had a collab that I did with Danny Howells, and it just came out the gate and it did really well, better than I thought it was going to do. And then, a couple more releases came out and still it was doing well. And then the I Got Five uh, remix came out, and that one just really, it was so rewarding. I can't tell you that, like, from my own inception of the label to this, and like 5 releases in, having another really successful record on my own platform without the help of a big label like a Tool Room, which, their influence draws so much track sales because everybody relies on labels like these to give them the quality music, right? So here it is, my label, all from myself, ground up, and getting that attention and that love was just super rewarding at the time, compared to just doing it on another label where you sign a contract and that's all you do. That's it. You hand the music off and you're done.
What would you say is some of the good and bad of that? What is the good and bad of that process? Because when you said it, like you hand it off and it's done. But it it
Right.
didn't
Well,
sound.
in a sense where, like, you make a song, you send it to a label, they're like, great, we like it, we'll take it. Here's your contract, right? So now they're going to take care of, the artwork, the promo, the mastering, and whatever else comes with it. And you're literally just sitting there waiting for your release date, right? When you're running your own label, it's your platform. It's your artwork that you choose, that you really like. There's certain situations where when you're working with a label, they show you artwork. You might not be in love with it, but at the same time, you want this record to move forward, and you don't want to be the guy being like, oh, I don't like the record, like, I don't like the artwork, take it back, do something else. Like, nobody wants to be that guy. So, you're kind of, your song's in someone else's hands, someone else's control. You don't really get to see too much of, like, track sales or anything. You get statements if you're lucky, a couple of times a year. But other than that, you don't really know anything. Now, when you're running your own label, you can go in back end, look and see, wow, I'm selling like 40% of my sales come from Germany. That's great. Now you can maybe you want to start doing your ads and stuff gearing towards the regions in the world where you're doing the best, so on and so forth. You just have all these analytics and information that you would never have once you're just like, okay, here's my song, take it, put it out, thank you.
Once you
Like,
were getting once you were getting a hold of some of this data, was that influencing what it was that you were trying to do? Were you following the data? Was the data leading
I
your
wasn't
decision?
following, no, the data wasn't dictating what I was doing, but it's definitely interesting to know that, like, wow, I'm selling way more in Europe than I ever thought. Maybe it's time that I try to, explore more avenues in Europe. It just gives you options. It shows you things so you can make decisions from the best possible place, as opposed to not knowing that information. How are you ever supposed to know that, oh, wow, like, this region of Europe really likes me? Like, maybe I should try to reach out to some people there and see if I can make something happen, or this or that. It's just information, right? The more info you know, the better your decision, the better chance you have of making the right decision, or the whatever you want to call it.
Vibe, direction,
Yeah, it's
energy flow.
would you rather have that information and know it when you're making a decision, a life-altering decision, or would you not? Would you prefer to not have it and just go the ignorance is bliss route?
Well, no, I mean,
I think
I
especially in today's sort of industry, it's like that information is key. everything's so based around like marketing and strategy and all that stuff, where it's like all that information is gold to people now.
What was it that are you still releasing on DV8 now?
I mean, I put a couple things out just before the whole COVID wave hit, and then I kind of stepped back from it for a minute, and I have some stuff that I'm ready to go with. I'm not sure when exactly I'm going to release it yet, but I don't see much point right now in releasing more like tracks geared towards dance floors. Like putting all that stuff out now, it's almost, I don't want to say pointless because I know a lot of people are doing it and there's still parties going on around the world, but it's, I'd rather wait till we're at full capacity to try to share this music to give it the best chance of, you know, doing what it's supposed to do as opposed to just coming out and like people listening on their phones to like a track that's made specifically for like a big system environment.
What about I'm thinking about what you just said here. I'm do the I'm do it's not really the argument, but the advocate thing. Yeah, yeah. Thinking that because before we talked about how music could be classic. If it was released decades ago, it's still going to be right today.
But for a lot of those people, is it not classic because, you know, it's like, oh, you can remember that time on the dance floor when you heard it for the first time. It's like this music, especially that club stuff, it's like to fully experience it, you really need a massive sound system in the right environment. You know, dance music taken out of context, it can kind of be, I don't know, a little lackluster, if that makes sense.
I firstly, neither of us are right or wrong, and so your experiences are awesome, and I want to learn from it. We all do, and I don't know if all of our experiences. I'm not quite sure if equal is the right word to use, but there's a similarity, and then there's going to be details that are really different. I didn't have dance music exposed to me before me in my eyes in a venue for years after I was exposed to it. I was listening to dance music at home before
Right.
I went out, and they were very different things. They were
Right.
very, my imagination and what I had going on in my head. I the first time I had a mixtape in front of me, it wasn't just the music that I was fascinated with. I was also fascinated with it, the idea the music wasn't ending, just kept going, and it felt like it was going places. So like what you were
The
talking,
journey.
what you were talking
The
about was
journey.
is the journey.
Right.
If you get a hold, it's still to this day. It's the more things change, the more they stay the same. I get a hold of someone sends me a great mix, and I press play, and 90 minutes or 2 hours goes by. Now the format. See, look, that's it. I'm stuck on the mixtape. 90 minutes. But the amount of time goes by on the mix. I had no idea. I have favorite parts that are within the mix. It's not just
Of
about the
course.
music. It's also about the mix itself, that I could go back and reference. You get a great mix. For me, I get a great mix, and it's fuel. It's inspirational. It's love. It's magic. It's moments. It's my own self care. That time where I can disappear. I put the headphones in, and that's it. And
Right.
I'll tell you, here's a strong opinion. Some of the best musical experiences I've ever had have been inside my headphones. They weren't live. That doesn't mean that I haven't had incredible live experiences. And I'm not just talking about
No, I
that
mean
as
I
Jello. I mean
could
just
I
as me at a concert or me at a party or me somewhere. Like
right.
yes, yes, fuck yes. But still, there's been times where I've been
Yeah,
in my
I mean
headphones or behind the wheel of a car where I've been on the highway. You get a righteous mixtape happening. Sayonara, man. Like I'm worried. I got to put the cruise control on because if I don't, it's out of control. I'm speeding up. I'm slowing down. I'm changing
right.
lanes. I'm into it. Like
Right. Yeah,
right.
totally.
I get lost. This
Yeah.
is, I think, the thing that maybe we all want with music. This experience where we become more because of it. This happened with me with electronic music. And I don't think it was house music, and it wasn't trance, or it wasn't techno, it wasn't jungle,
Right.
it wasn't dubstep. It's fucking all of it,
Right.
right? And it's for me, it's constantly evolving. The stuff that I swore that I would never listen to then, I find myself listening to now, and vice versa, right?
Right.
And what are the rules? Where are they printed? Where can I find them? Where can I see them? Where can I read about them?
Sorry, you just cut out there.
Did I?
I lost you for a second there. Yeah.
Okay, that's all right. Would you have music that stayed on your keys in your record box? Did you have certain tracks that were with you all the time? Would never
Still
leave your
to this
side? Yeah,
day,
yeah, that were,
for like 10 years, yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're your tried tracks that like it's not just about rescuing a dance floor. It's about that you could get that moment because it's gonna do that moment for you.
Yeah.
What would these tracks be for you?
Mm. Honestly, a lot of them were my own edits of other songs. So, for example, like one that was tried and true that I played for years was like a Pump Up the Jam edit that I did, which, that familiarity, but in a way you've never heard it before, can really resonate with people, I find. So it was like that. I had another one that was an Around the World edit, Daft Punk, that, like, if I was ever playing closing sets, I'd always try to just throw it in there if I had like the right moment and environment. And that one was always just a fucking winner. I mean, how could it not be? I'm trying to think of some other ones right off the bat. Um, there's another one that was a Dirty Culture track called Save Your Feelings, which, I think I got it 7 years ago, and like it's not leaving anytime soon. Like, I still lean on it in certain moments. Another one was an edit I did of I Wish You Were Here by why am I John Creamer and Stephen K, which oddly enough was the first track that got me into dance music on that Hernan set that I told you about an hour ago.
And
So
the episode of Utility comes full circle.
there you go. So yeah, I
Awesome.
mean, a, a lot of them were just edits of sort of, more popular stuff. And then there was some other stuff that was just unreleased music of mine that, I just rinsed through the years because I never released it. So going to different cities, you can play those songs. And it's not like, you might be tired yourself of hearing it. But I don't know, with most of my music, that's not the case, right? So
What about a show? Was there a specific show that you were at on tour? I think I was trying to ask this question before. Was there a certain moment that you were out there that you remember, you recall now, that when it happens you get some shivers, hairs on your arms stand up?
I mean, there's a few for different reasons. Um, One of them would be I played this bullet party in WMC. I can't remember what the year was, maybe like 2012, 2013. And I got to play a back to back set with Danny Howells, which at the time was like, and still is, like one of my heroes of dance music. I remember seeing him play a set at System Soundbar in Toronto, where he played. It was for his GU um, tour, and he played open to close, and it was a journey. It was one of those nights where it was like this guy started here and he ended here, and it was just like flawless. So big influence on me in my life, and now I'm playing with him. But not only am I playing with him, like Danny Teneglia, Dubb Fire, and a bunch of other people are like in the crowd, like hanging out and jamming while we were playing. So, it wasn't like a massive festival scenario where there were thousands of people. It was maybe like a 300-person room, but like it was just one of those times where I look back and I have a really shitty recording of it, which I listen to from time to time. It sounds terrible, but just to like give me that feeling again, I listen to it. So that's one that is a big one. And then uh, I've done a couple shows in South America. In Peru, I played a couple really good festivals there, which playing for a South American crowd, I'm sure you know, is very different than playing for like a North American crowd or maybe even a European crowd in the sense that like I don't know, man, I've never felt such love from like a group of like a massive place as I did playing in those like festivals and gigs down there. It was like next level for me. And then, you know, there's personal ones. Like I can think of ones where I've done in like London, Ontario that like are some of my favorite shows I ever did. And we're talking about like, you know, a 200-person room in like an after hours type environment. It was just like the vibes were just so perfect that like, you know, I would go back to any of those gigs and happily play that type of show over and over for the rest of my life and be fully content with it.
I've tried to talk to some of my friends after shows. If you've done shows and you've got some friends with you, everyone's very excited afterwards. You know, especially if things go well. Um, a lot of
Right.
questions, and obviously when you're doing a really big show, you know, all your friends are hollering up, and they're like, can I come?
Hmm.
And then afterwards, you know, because you know they're with you kind of on stage, um, they're like, that was awesome. There was, you know, X amount of people. This was incredible. And I'll say it is, but sometimes you can hit a really small club. It can be 150 people, 200 people, and it can feel the same way as the 2,000 people, for example, or you know,
Right.
you can get that.
Totally.
Yeah, you can get that return, which is I think
That's
that's
why like when people ask, I could never say one specific show because for different reasons I got like that same amount of fulfillment through like multiple different scenarios of DJing.
Do you wanna know how much of a good time tonight was?
How much of a good time was tonight?
You were concerned. You were like, how long will you be able to talk for?
Yeah, I noticed that I've just been yammering away for the
No,
last
no,
hour.
no, no, no. This is us, but it's also the magic of utility room. Uh, I, you know, we didn't talk about movies.
No, we didn't.
You were concerned for a sec that it might go there. You know, I'll tell you something that I have had some deep dive movie discussions with you, Dan.
Yeah, we have.
We have.
Super nerds.
So I want to go here for a sec because I feel
Oh,
like
briefly.
if you're watching the show that and you want to get some Daniel Dubb and some info, I feel like we got some stuff.
Right.
Do you feel like there was something that we didn't go near tonight? If there was
I
something
don't
that
know.
you wanted to,
We kind of went down a more like, you know, memory lane route. But that's
sure.
okay. You know, I don't necessarily do that too often, so I'm happy to talk about those things. I don't know if I gave anyone any information that's valuable in here, but you know,
Oh, I do. I mean, listen, I'll tell you what you want. I'll give you. You want me to give you a little bit of criticism? I can give you a little bit of criticism.
sure,
All right.
absolutely. I'm always down.
It's all with love. I mean, like, and I'm not quite sure, you know, if it really matters, but
Don't say garnish when you're talking about yourself. Is that what your
definitely
criticism
say it if
is?
you're going to be putting parsley on top of a piece of meat.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Okay, what's your criticism?
The bio, when I was reading your bio, I felt like it was
Old.
no, I maybe not personal enough. Like
Right.
it didn't give me a
So
timeline of
here's the thing about the bios. In a lot of cases, you're trying to kind of put it in a way that people can understand what you've done and where, you know, where you came from, but you can't go too into all the details because nobody wants the average person doesn't want to sit there and read, you know, a full story of your life. They want the cliff notes. Who are you? They want the synopsis, right?
so like for example, what I learned tonight is that you were playing instruments before you were getting into electronic music. You know,
Right.
that like music has kind of been with you for some time. It wasn't just
Mhm.
all of a sudden, oh shit, I'm gonna, you know, get up there and work a mixing board and then sit down in front of, Ableton and
Right.
make some loops come together harmoniously. You know,
Yes, I did come from music prior to that.
so that's not there, but I think that's obviously interesting to know that you have musicality. It was a part of you. How about that?
Hmm.
And when did it start? What was the year? Here,
I was,
I'm here for you, Daniel Dubb. But essentially, what I'm trying to tell you is that on the side, low key, I've been doing bio services, rewrites, and that if you need my help, I'm here for you.
okay. We'll talk once the live stream's off. I'll slide into
I'm,
your DMs about it.
but that's just it. So I mean, so yeah, so memory lane because, and also, I mean, also it's a romance show. This is a romance show.
Right.
I don't do gotcha questions for people I'm talking to. I certainly don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. I feel like maybe I'm generating a lot of trust because of that, because clearly I'm talking to a lot of us. I I want to hear how you fell in love, and clearly you are. Are you having a moment right now? Is there like, I guess, an impasse happening with you in electronic music, dance music?
I mean, my focuses have definitely shifted in the last couple of years where, I'm doing a lot more work helping other people, whether it's mixing or mastering or, people who are trying to get, their vision to that finish line, but maybe they don't necessarily have the means to do it. And so I've been doing a lot of that lately, and it's definitely a shift from focusing on one's sort of own career, but at the same time, it has its own fulfillments of I'm constantly helping people all the time get their visions down the way that they saw it, as opposed to a lot of us over the years, maybe we struggle with getting something right. Your ears are tired of it. You've heard it 1,000 times. You can't get this part right. Your mix doesn't sound. There's all these issues, and they prevent people from necessarily putting out the content that they want to. So in the last couple of years, I've somewhat shifted just out of doing work with some people, and then other people hear about it, and then all of a sudden I realized, oh, I have a business out of this now. Nice. um so a lot of stuff
What,
like
what
that is
was what was
happening these
nice?
days.
You mean me?
Yeah, your burp is nice.
Did you hear me burp?
Oh yeah, everybody heard you.
I just muted it.
Nah, didn't work.
Really? I had to. I'm sorry. I mean, I put my hand over myself. I,
It's
I,
all
I was
good. It's
trying I
all
was
good.
trying to cover up. I'm only human. I mean, a burp is going to escape once in a while,
Yeah,
as much as I might not want it to.
can I give you some criticism for
You
the
for the
show?
utility room?
Yeah.
Fuck
Be a little
yes.
more gentlemanly, maybe. Don't be burping while, you know.
You fucking asshole.
Anyways, going back to it. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of work with other people now, and it's equally as fulfilling in a different way. Um, and I'm having a lot of fun with it at the moment, especially considering, the DJ world has been basically shut down in a certain regard, and a lot of people are, making a lot of music now and don't really have, the opportunities to go and play it. So everybody's making a lot of music, and there's a lot of people out there who need help with that, and I've been having fun helping them with it.
I'm wondering what is it about the pandemic, do you think, that has changed music? Have you noticed any changes in music?
Like stylistically, what's popular?
Sure.
Well, it would kind of make sense that like more melodic stuff would be popular right now, just because it's something that's a little more easily listening to in like more situations. You're not necessarily going to put on hard techno when you're like sitting at home working. Maybe you are, but maybe you're just looking for something a little more sort of easy listening. So I think a lot of like more melodic stuff is popular right now, just because it's, it's easier to listen to in everyday life than, really clubby music where it's like it's really geared towards that. And if you're not, it's not fulfilling its like full potential when you're just listening to it on like dinky computer speakers or whatever it is, your phone or whatnot. So I notice with a lot of music that's being brought to me anyways, it's definitely more leaning on that like melodic side as opposed to that like bass and drum driven kind of like little vocal snip type of house.
We didn't talk about your album.
No, we didn't.
Kind of important.
Well, that's more current than the memory lane that we walked down. So,
You know, tell us about it.
Yeah, I put an album out around the middle of 2019, so it's just coming up, just under 2 years now. But it's really done. It did really well last year. Streamed, I don't know. It's coming up on 1 million now on the collectively on the album on Spotify for streams. So I'm super happy about that.
That's sick.
It was a project. It was purely out of like, love. It wasn't geared towards, I'm going to try to do this for a dance floor, this or that. It was just tracks that I made from myself at a moment where I needed to put some, emotional, meaningful music out there, and I did it. And I, maybe one mix issue I would change looking back now, but not, other than that, I still, all the music holds up to me and is still some of my favorite music that I've done. So,
Do you play your own tracks for yourself after after the fatigue of the production, where you're like,
right.
okay, I've just finished listening to this like thousands of times. I don't need to press play on this anymore. But then you do.
So I only tend to feel that way with music that I was never truly happy with, where I'm like, I don't want to hear this one anymore. If it's something like I can go back and listen to my album now and still appreciate it just as much as the day that I, completed it, because when I hear it, it invokes the same stuff in me that was there when I made it almost. So like if I want to feel nostalgic about it, I can go down a trip down memory lane and almost like put myself back in that scenario of when I made it, when I revisit it and listen to it. So, unless I'm either have a really negative attachment to a song, which, that doesn't really happen, or like I said, I was never truly happy with it. I might have put it out because I didn't think it was bad, but for me, it wasn't quite 100% for me, for myself. So maybe songs like that I can get tired of.
There's a really special quality, I think, about being able to put something together and feel that content with it, that you're able to walk away and then years later pick it back up, press play, and still have that satisfied feeling. This is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that specific album, um, it was a lot of time coming. Like it was the ideas for some of those tracks started years before the tracks got finished. It might have been, a, a melody I wrote at a time when, I was unsure, oh, what am I going to do with this? So I just kind of put it off to the side. And then sort of when the idea of the album and what I thought it could be started coming together, I would remember those little ideas I started that, at the time I was really into, but I knew that they weren't right for whatever I was doing at that moment. So I was able to like go back to like chords that I wrote a couple of years ago that I really liked, I just couldn't use. And now I have them here and they apply to this project that I'm doing. And it's like, not only do they apply, they're perfect. So everything with that album specifically, like everything that I put in every record almost had a purpose. And there's nothing musically that I regret about any of those songs.
we want to listen to Daniel Dubb. Do you have a
Hmm.
spot that you favor? You'd want people to go to?
Um, 6 to 1, half a dozen. You can go to Spotify is just the one that everybody seems to sort of go to the most. So all this stuff is on there. On my SoundCloud, there's a playlist of all of a bunch of productions and then playlists of mixes and sets to them too, like live ones recorded. Um, SoundCloud is probably the one for like if you're looking for all the DJ stuff, I would push towards SoundCloud. If you're looking for more of the music stuff, even my album, for example, I mean, every platform has it. So whichever one you're comfortable with, it's on there.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Been amazing having you with us tonight.
it has been. It's been a
Do you,
pleasure.
you know, I really, I like this. I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't.
Right.
I didn't. We've,
No.
you and I
Yeah.
have never gone here.
No, we haven't. And
Yeah.
it was totally all geared towards me, which, I wish I heard a little more of your stuff, but you're gonna have to tell me off camera.
You want to, here's your shot. Ask a question. We're right here, right now. Nothing stopping
Yeah, like what, you asked me what my moment was where, I got into this. It's like, what was yours? What was your moment where you're like, I like electronic music. I think I want to pursue something here.
Okay, so
And what took you there?
so two different experiences. So I was listening to synth pop, um, and a lot of the mid '80s stuff that was happening
Like
in
talking like Depeche Mode, like Blue
in
Monday, and like,
so I did like it. Yeah, New Order, Depeche Mode. I did like it. I liked the really big tracks
right,
that were popular. Obviously, I won't. We know what these songs are. I wasn't into the albums. I was into the singles,
okay.
and obviously, it, the beat, the momentum. This is, but that's what I'm saying. A lot of the video games that I was playing, a lot of the movies that I was watching, the sci-fi films, the action films that had these very, heavy synth,
Can you just name me one in particular, if you could name one of these
which
movies?
like with like synthy
Like
soundtracks.
like Blade Runner?
So Blade Runner was like ethereal, like this is Vangelis is Blade Runner.
Okay,
So it's harpsichordy, it, chorusy, this
right.
type. So
Ominous
I mean,
almost.
yeah, I love both Blade Runner films. Uh, no, like there was like lots of stuff like Buckaroo Banzai. Do you know this movie?
No fucking idea what that is.
Here we go. Yeah, it starred Peter Weller, who went on to become RoboCop.
Okay, yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, and uh,
It's like
gosh,
a weird sci-fi.
there was a moment like when direct to video first started happening, and Roger Corman productions were coming through. Like there was a ton of. Do you remember Krull? Krull. This was a fantasy film. And he had like this thing that it was called the glaive. It was like the star throwing this
Oh.
throwing star
Is this
thing that
like
he had.
mid 80s fantasy we're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, it is. I mean, like this is like VHS.
I might have seen that maybe like once, but it's not like I know it per se.
Anytime I heard an arpeggiator happen,
Yeah. Yeah.
immediately it was like a dog whistle for me. You know, um, so uh, I was there. So I think that was the start of it. I think to myself stuff like uh, Tone Loc, Funky Cold Medina, Paula
Okay.
Abdul. Opposites Attract, Young MC, all this moment, Madonna Vogue, which a lot of people, I think even by Wikipedia is known as the first commercial success house music song. Or Vogue was, I think, actually, I think on Wiki you could look, you'd have to see. I think it's actually categorized as warehouse music, not
Interesting.
not exactly house music.
Hmm.
Um, I this was the
So like the
stuff.
earlier like dance pop almost.
Yeah, well because there was this was the rabbit hole for me. If you wanted to go further down a rabbit hole, it was Vegas at the record store. You didn't know what was going to happen. You're combing the aisles, and like I was guilty of it. You judge a book by its cover. So
Right.
what's happening with the artwork? What's going on? So and then when I started buying my stuff, that's what happened. I was able to go down a rabbit hole. I think it was a bit of some cosmic luck that I found Information Society, that I found the Art of Noise. These were the I bought these albums.
Hmm.
I had them on cassette, and then later on, CD. I this was it for me. This is how I learned about dance music. I didn't know what a DJ mix was. I didn't had no idea what a mixer was. So then the second part of what it was that you asked was me going to high school, already, crazy music person. My parents got divorced. I went head first into comic books and music. Two things. These were my escapes.
Hey man, they're two great things.
For sure.
You still have yours, your comic books from your childhood?
I have some, and this is vinyl too. It's a separate question. This is sad, so I'm just gonna say it and move on.
Right.
I had a crazy flood in 2014 and lost almost
Oh
all of
no.
my material possessions.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, I had a scrapbook.
Heartbreaking.
I had a scrapbook of all the flyers, like not just ones like when I first started going out partying, but like the very first Jello. Someone put my name on a flyer. I kept all of it, and I kind of
Uh,
and I had it.
I have my first flyer mounted on the wall over there.
Okay, I had this scrapbook that I made, and I was keeping stuff in chronological order, and I I
That's terrible.
I came home after grocery shopping, and there was gray water, uh, almost up to my knees, all over, and so yeah. But I do have some stuff, but not nowhere near what it was. I think I lost almost all of my Spider-Mans, which was dark because I had like all like
Right,
right from
right.
McFarlane starting to when he stopped.
Like
It right
right
into
around like
Right into Eric Larson. I had all that.
nerd
So
moment, guys. That would be right around Spider-Man 300.
exactly, which is first Venom. I had all that, and it
Uh,
floated away.
Terrible.
Yeah, yeah. I had to get over it, and
Yeah,
and
yeah, you would.
and as you can see, I'm not quite sure I've really done that. So.
Oh, that sucks though.
And maybe that's one of the closet reasons for utility room is that I'm able to talk to everyone and they say stuff and I go, oh shit, now I remember that. Yay. Like the memory's
Mhm.
back. I haven't lost it because so much of it did float away. Um, but I had
I'm sorry for laughing.
that's no, go ahead. That's all right. I
Just the way you said that
it,
was
it
so
it is what
tragic.
it is. It is what it is. So I'm going to school. Already really loved music so much and loved all of
Were
it.
you playing music in
No,
school? Were you
no,
in
no,
band or
nothing,
taking
nothing.
music
Just
class?
just just
None of
just
that.
just a just nerd.
Just listening.
Just nerd.
Just listen.
Yeah, and want it all. And the irony is that um like 'cause the different phases of stuff that I'd go through, and I think that I was in a folk country rocky phase. Like I was listening to a lot of Tragically Hip. I was listening to a lot of George Thorogood and the Destroyers, Leonard Skinner. Like Southern, like CCR. Fucking love CCR. Um, you know, and I wasn't big into beer, which is really weird because I was listening to stuff, but I was just into it. And I didn't have a lot of friends in high school. I met a super cool dude named Oren. We became friends, and he came over to my house, and to this day, I don't know if he did this purposely or not, but he kept saying, "Oh, this music you're listening to, man." He's what are you listening to, man? And so he's like, "I've got this CD." He's like, "Do you want me to put this on?" I'm like, "What is that?" He's like, "It's a mix." He goes, "It's trance music." What the fuck is that? So he
Right.
puts it on, and at first, when it first starts, I was like, "This is too weird for me. I don't know what this is." But
And it was
I made him
fast. It was fast.
I made him turn it off,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he left the CD on top of my CD player, like in the case, the whole thing. He left it on top of my CD player, and for
Do you
days. And I
remember
remember
whose mix it was?
absolutely
Just and
Dr. Trance dancing to the light.
I gotta look this up. I'm not familiar with the piece.
So this was a popular mix for Dr. Trance. It was.
Right.
A lot of people had the CD.
My first trance that I listened to was like a Tiesto In Search of Sunrise, one of the volumes. Was
Right,
my first trance experience. And this was
right.
after I already got into like progressive house. And my buddy was like,
Also a really big CD, but much, yes, very big.
I want you to listen to this. This is gonna be a little different. It's gonna be a little different, but like just like give it a chance. Just give it a chance. And we ended up listening to the whole thing. And I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, that ended up happening for me. I remember I called him up. I think the next day, and I was like, you left your CD here, and he's like, you should just play it.
Right.
And that's why I'm saying I don't know if he did this purposely or not. So one day after school, I don't want to listen to everything else I've got. Fine, put something else in there.
You're
I'm give
listening
it
to
a shot.
Dr. Strange's
Yeah,
character.
well, I've got like the 15-minute rule when it comes to albums. You know what I mean? Like dazzle me with your first few tracks, and if not, then like I gotta
Right.
go. I'm not, like
Right.
this isn't going the direction I want it to. Which is
Right.
which is which is by the way absolute bullshit and a terrible move to make. Um,
No,
I
you
can
can't help it.
self criticize. Yeah, I'm not perfect. So I put the CD on, and obviously by the end of it, it's like, and that was my bug bite.
Right.
Yeah, and then I found out that Dr. Trance was on the radio, and I started tuning in and recording all of the episodes. And also DJ James, who had a show, I think it was called Night Flight,
Okay.
which happened much later. And this was more house music than what Dr. Trance was playing on his show. Um, and that led me down a different uh, road. And so there's a little. This is I'll fast forward here. Uh, I Me and my best friend created a fanzine called Subterrane,
Okay.
and it was a little black and white printed Kinko printed magazine that we made, and that's how I met Dr. Trance, and we became friends.
You met your hero.
Yeah,
Okay. Did he live up to it?
did you ever meet Don?
No.
Don was fucking awesome. He's he's
Okay.
he's he's, he's actually right here. Um, and Dawn pre-effective. I don't know if you know that Dr. Trance was one of the main dudes that was doing these raves that were called effective. This is after Atlantis. I mean, Dr. Trance was throwing tons of parties and stuff, but um, he started doing these events called effective. But before that happened, he he gave me a mix. He hollered at me and he said, "I have a mix that you have got to hear." And he was really excited. I went, all right. Well, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna get this to you, and he did. And it was Bad Boy Bill's Bang in the Box Volume One, and that fucking changed me.
Familiar with the mix.
Fucking changed me. And from there on in, the goal was to, I mean, I always wanted to do my own thing. um but when by the time I heard, I should digress, by the time I got a hold of this CD, um I had already started playing some music on my own. I had no idea about the direction or what was going on. I just knew that I was having a good time doing it, and that I wanted to make my own mixtapes. That
Right.
was that was
It's what every aspiring DJ, it's what they build up to, is their mix. Gonna make a
I
mix.
this is a thing though. For me, it was, I didn't know about getting out there, and the very first types of gigs that I did, I brought my own turntables to. Like, I'd show up to somebody's, like, I played like, I don't know, a dozen house parties in
Right.
houses before I and then boom, I was at Cyrus 4 year anniversary. That was my warm up, was doing the house parties. But the word was like also my phone was ringing, like I was, people were calling me up, like people that I didn't know, being like, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" I don't know, homework. They'd be like, "Yo,
Right.
there's a party at this person's house. Will you come and bring your shit and play some music for us?" Oh fuck yeah, I'd love to. So I did. I'd pack up all my stuff. You know,
Here's the really important question I want to know. When you were playing those gigs in those little houses and whatnot, were you fucking jamming as hard as you jam today? Like, were you always right out the gate that like big presence DJ that you are, or did that come like with more experience?
so uh, the short answer is yes. Uh, I think as I became more comfortable performing, it was easier for me to let go. And
Which is interesting to me, that because I played a ton of gigs, and I was never really the nervous type before shows, but yet I'm still this very not accentuated DJ. I'm very like in the mixer, and like that's what I'm doing, and I get lost in that. Whereas like you're the polar opposite. Like your showmanship is super strong when you're DJing. So it's like it's
I'm half with you. I'm 1 foot in and 1 foot out.
yeah,
So so
I was never able to do that balance of like showmanship versus DJing. It's like when I'm doing it, it's like I'm just so lost in it that like to someone far away, it looks like I'm barely moving. It looks like I'm standing there.
so
From a dude in the back of a festival, they can tell that you're fucking going mental in a booth.
so this is just it. Like, it was never I never thought about giving people a show. I thought
No,
I
people just
thought to
have it.
myself
Some
that
people just have that. A lot of people just have that.
I think that if it's this, I love the music that I'm out there playing so fucking much, I'm fucking dancing to. That's all. That's it. That's the secret.
Maybe
That's
it's I
it.
just don't
I,
have the
I
coordination to be going crazy while trying to DJ. I don't know what it is. I could just never get to that point, really,
here's
man.
here's the other end of it. What you asked is was it right out of the gate? See, when I'm at home and I'm just jamming, it looks
It's the same.
exactly the same way as it looks
Yeah.
as when you see. So, like, in fact, maybe even funnier if my neighbors were, because they can't, like, if you were at a distance and saw, from a house over and looked in the backyard and be like, is that is there someone, like, you can't hear anything, you just see some guys like,
Dude, I would
like for
fucking
like
pay
for like an
money to
hour and
see
a
that,
half or
man.
something, just be like, you go get some pop some popcorn. They're just sitting down there, just, he's still gone.
Just watching this guy. That's totally what you'd see on like some like I don't know. In Toronto, we have like Six Buzz on Instagram where they just post all these like random funny videos, and like that would be one of them.
Right,
Somebody
that's
like
that.
zooming in on their neighbor, just going fucking mental, but you can't hear any sound.
Yeah. So, I think that, and that was it. So I'd go shopping, or I would get a promo sent to me. Music would come to me, and I was so excited about that, and that I discovered something that made me feel that type of way. That I also in turn got really fucking excited about going to somebody else and be like, "No, when you hear this," and then I'd be up there, and then that's exactly what I wouldn't maybe I wasn't saying it, but I'd fucking show it.
Right. It's like my expression came with how sharp I twisted that fucking knob back down to zero. You didn't let the bass off. Like
Listen,
that's like that's
we all
my
have our own stuff. I'm sure that there's definitely people who could see, many people at the back from the back room and look up and say that's Daniel Dubb that they're watching. Everyone's
right.
got their own thing. How about Digweed? Let's talk about Digweed for a second. I mean,
That's who I fucking like. That's literally
there's
it's
there's a
those
there's a
guys that
there's a
I learned
statue,
from.
and then there's John Digweed. The statue's much quieter, right? It's
Well,
not making the same.
it's funny that you use him because like when I started getting into DJing, it's like I would go to the clubs and try to get as close to the DJ when guys like him were playing, so I could just literally watch what these guys are doing. And all the guys who I, for the most part, admired when I was growing up, it's like none of them were overly expressive either as DJs. They were all really calm, collected. Maybe that had an influence on why I was.
Concentrated, I would say. I mean, when you see Digweed's face when he's playing, he's locked in.
Yeah, yeah,
He
100%.
he's locked
100%.
in,
Which like
and so
it's it's a gift, but at the same time it's terrible because I've had like friends like at shows come up and they were like, I was screaming at you from
right,
like the left side and you
right.
didn't look at me. And it's like I didn't even fucking hear you, man.
I listen. I'm exactly like you. I can't really hear it or see it. The few times that I do look up to the mixer, I'm looking up to make sure that what I'm feeling and what I'm doing is what they're feeling and what they're doing.
Right, but
Uh,
are you locking eyes with people on the dance floor a lot? Because that's like I'm looking.
Sometimes I
It's
don't.
like
I don't really have a formula. And listen, I'm mad nervous before I'm
still.
playing, and this is it's not the mistakes. See, I think that's maybe a difference for you and I, is that you're very concentrated on the technicality of it. I'm not saying I'm not, like, clearly I'm a technical performer. I'm running four channels at the same time. I'm just saying, I'm saying that I started forgiving myself for the technical mistakes that were
Oh,
happening.
I fucking, every night you have one little one. Maybe nobody else noticed it because you forget to drop the bass on the one and you drop it on the two and they love it. But to you, you're like, fuck, I
Well,
forgot.
sometimes
Or
that
like,
sounds good though.
right? You take that moment.
Right,
Like, yeah,
happy happy accidents.
I had a terror moment playing in Peru once in Lima at one of these festivals I was playing. And the whole fucking stage and sound system just went boop and out. Everything off. There's like fucking 4,000 people there. So, like, 1 minute goes by, it's not back on. 2 minutes goes by, it's not back on. 3 minutes, okay, now they're yelling. 4 minutes, now people are throwing cups, not at me, but like,
Right,
around.
right.
So, about 4.5 minutes later, the power comes back on. It's like, what do you do in this moment? For whatever reason, there was the Oliver Dollar track, whichever that one was back in like 2012 or
There's a
whatever.
there's a
Do
there's
it,
a few.
do it, my thing. I think it was
Okay.
called. And like halfway through the record, there's a part where, like in the song, the record stops, and the guy's like, "Oh, hold on, wait a minute, I'm gonna start this motherfucker over again." And I like in the headphones, as soon as the power came on, I went to that track, went to that break, and hit play right from that moment. And I just like, it was what could have been just a nightmare, but like I managed to turn it into like this great moment. And like I look back at that now, and I still like it was a big moment for me because it's like, what do you do when you get thrown into the shit, bud?
I had something. The first time I toured Taiwan, um, I played in a city called Kaohsiung,
Okay.
and I think that I needed a specific permit to be performing, and
One of those.
I didn't have it. And 30 minutes into my set, the promoter comes running up to me and says, um, don't leave the booth and mind your own business. Just like chill for a sec." And next thing I knew, I saw a blinking flashlight in my eye, and I looked like over the railing of the booth down to the floor, and it was like
Yeah.
a group of cops, and they went like they signaled like that, so I just brought the volume down, and someone said something to me, and I don't know what I don't know what was said, and so I just kind of took a step back and was just like, oh shit, like I I
Right.
I was scared. But what gave me a bit of a of like it's like everything's okay is, well, one, I don't think that they were there for I don't think that they were there for me. But a lot of people were like they started doing like a chant like to get the music
Hmm.
back up again.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm assuming that they were saying like you guys should leave because a lot of people were pointing towards the exit and doing a chant at the same time. And in and around the time that I noticed that the cops were about to leave, I had this bootleg for "Fight for Your Right to Party" by Beastie Boys, and I dropped it. And as soon as it's you gotta like right there at the break of the vocal, and the whole club, it was
Exact same moment. Literally the
like every
exact same
lion
moment.
in the jungle in unison just roar. It was just
Yeah,
a
yeah,
really
that's great. Yeah,
it
that's a
was a
good one.
definitely it was a really cool moment, you know. Um,
What started is like what could have been an absolute tragedy that turns into this like everybody went home and like for years there's someone out there this year there's probably like you remember when that DJ Jello came and the cops came and then he played that record. It's like you like there's people who that's like embedded in their brain forever now. That moment.
and mine too.
Of course.
And so this was a big ingredient to my adventure and my fuel to be on the road for I toured for 21 years.
Yeah.
Um, was seeing the music work because when I first started listening to electronic music, I was teased by friends, acquaintances, family. What is this here? What is this? What is
Right.
this? What is this?
Definitely hard for people outside to understand.
You know, and so because in my brain when I was at home and I was jamming in my brain I saw it working. I mean it was working on me. And
Right.
so I think that's one of the things about raving, and I think you said it before, the lights are dark, blues and reds, you said. You can't see what's happening, and people are able to let go of the stuff that maybe typically would hold them back.
Yeah.
And and when I was playing, I was able to let go. So this is the longest answer I could have given you. This is what you asked. What is it? So what you're really seeing up there, it's not showmanship. It's me letting go. Really, really excited and sharing music that I'm so excited about because it made me dance my ass off at home and headbang in my car. And now I'm going to get out in front of you. I'm gonna have the opportunity to play it really fucking loud, and we're gonna all dance together right now. And that's 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 me in front of people. That's what it is.
Yeah. It's a skill, man. It's a skill as a performer.
I thanks. I'll tell you. I think I'm I think I'm still just having fun.
Yeah, but it's not that
I
I'm
get
not
it now.
having fun. When I'm DJing, you look at me and I look stone cold, like, so focused, but I'm up there having a fucking time of my life, whether like they see it or
Sure.
not.
Yeah. Like I'm saying, like your presence is its own thing. Like that's there's magic in that for sure. And it shouldn't all be the same. I think if I went into a venue and saw 5 Jellos in a row, I promise you by the sixth Jello, I'm like, no, no,
Right.
you're like,
Right.
no, you know, um,
It's funny how every DJ has their own little moves, and like the big ones, like you can tell who they are just from their silhouettes and how they move.
right, right. That's it. This is what I'm saying. I think that you were absolutely fabulous. Truly, being with us tonight, sharing, what's in your heart, what's on your mind, it's awesome. So I want to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Ah, you're
No,
welcome. Just happy.
yeah,
Happy to
thank
do
you.
it.
Yeah. Did you have do you have any more cross questions? Do you want to any
I
more
mean,
deep dives?
I mean, we're bordering on 2 hours here. We've probably done enough.
Like Dan, like butter,
I mean, yeah, I'm sure we could sit here and talk a bunch more.
like butter.
I should probably take my dog for a walk because
Yeah, you
I gotta
should.
go out.
Yeah,
So,
so does everyone else. I couldn't imagine somebody, like if they were just sitting still watching us right now, and their
right,
ass is probably half asleep. No.
probably mine is. Well, it was
No,
great, and we should do
thank
it
you.
again sometime.
I was just thinking to myself actually while you were talking and we were talking about the music that you're doing that I would love to have you back on the show, and I think it would be pretty cool if you got together all of your own music and put a set together for us to hear. I think that would be something special, something unique. I'm not quite sure if you've ever done all Daniel Dubb, in a sesh, but if you have, that's cool. But you haven't done it for us, and it would be awesome if you could share that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't think it's impossible. Like, playing all my own music.
I'd like that. I think everyone else would too. Huh?
Cool. Well, let's keep in touch about
Daniel
it.
Dubb, right here in the utility room. My name is Jello. You are absolutely awesome sauce. We'll see you soon.